Many of you know that I started learning meditation when I was working in corporate on Wall Street. And during that time, I was incredibly stressed out and depressed, and I essentially hit rock bottom because I felt disenchanted with life. I had achieved everything I thought I ever wanted, and I still felt empty. I still felt unfulfilled. And it was during that time I was really forced to look inward. And I essentially prayed to find a way to be okay in the world. And that's how I started learning about meditation. It essentially fell into my lap. And by finding a book, a random book at the bookstore about Zen meditation. And as soon as I started learning about meditation, it captured my heart. And they say in Zen that when you learn meditation, you should train as if your hair is on fire. And that's exactly how I felt. It set my soul on fire. I felt so much joy and peace and aliveness and flow after I started learning meditation. It changed every part of my life, from my work to my yoga practice to my relationships. Everything transformed, and I was so captivated by this practice. I wanted to dedicate my life to studying meditation, and that's when I decided to take this huge leap of faith and leave my work in New York. I sold everything I had, and I rented out my a condo in Brooklyn. And it all flowed as soon as I made that decision. And my intention was to go to Asia and to learn meditation from its source. I wanted to learn meditation from the ancient texts. I wanted to go deeper into yoga. That was my personal desire. I had always wanted to travel around the world as well. And after having a near-death miss, I won't go into that, but I missed the tsunami just by chance by a few days in 2004. And that really made me look at the way I was living my life. I realized that we don't know if we're going to be here next week. We don't know when we're out of here. So I figured I might as well just start living my dreams now. That was my reasoning. I had always wanted to travel. I wanted to learn more about meditation. So I went to India. And when I went to India, I practiced really rigorously. And first of all, I just want to say I was so scared to go to India by myself. I must have cried for weeks ahead of leaving for India. I knew it wasn't that safe for women to travel by themselves there. So it took a lot for me to go there and to study. I stayed at an ashram in the south of India in Tiruvannamalai, which is near Chennai. And this was, shanty towns, literally 4 hours of driving into the middle of nowhere and learning meditation and yoga in a very traditional way. And when I started learning this way, first of all, I loved it, but there was something I noticed that happened. I lost a lot of weight. I was strictly going by the yogic diet and the yoga practices and the breathing practices, the cleansing practices. So I ended up losing quite a bit of weight. And in that, I lost a lot of my femininity. I lost my hips, my breasts, my buttocks. I mean, just anything that made me feel feminine. I became androgynous and sexless. And they teach you, about sexual restriction and abstinence and how important that is to be focused on your spiritual journey and your spiritual path. So there's a lot of, removing that part of yourself from your spiritual practice. And that's what I did. I felt androgynous. I felt sexless. And what ended up happening is that I stopped having my menstrual cycle, my period. It threw my hormones so much out of balance that I stopped having my period. And it was painful. So every month I thought I would have my period. I didn't have my period, and I felt less and less like myself. I'd always been a more, kind of, I guess, voluptuous or sensuous type of person, and all of that just went away. And some kind of fire and spark also went away as I was rigorously practicing intensely 6 to 10 hours a day. And I went on to practice like this on my own, also with my teacher, practicing in a very strict, disciplined way. And again, when I was going through it, I liked it. I wanted to be immersed in that. But when my health and my hormones and my body kind of went sideways, I really had to stop and think about what I was doing and what I was practicing and the way I was practicing. So when I was at these ashrams and spiritual centers, a lot of them were so strict and militaristic and austere. It was about giving up your worldly belongings, giving up the outside world. It was very much a focus on, the spiritual practices that they were sharing within that traditional context. And what I saw were people leaving in tears. It was way too harsh, way too intense. And I kind of wondered, I thought, why did it have to be this way? I mean, every hour of our day was booked. Every hour of our day was yoga, meditation, chanting, study, karma yoga. And we had to wake up at the crack of dawn, and we were lights out at 10 p.m. So every hour was pretty much determined for us. We had a little bit of downtime in the afternoon, but it also didn't allow for us to really sink in and go deep into our emotions and processing what was really happening on a deeper level. So I started thinking about this, and I wondered where, the feminine touch was in all of this. Where was the softness and the nurturing and the space and the allowance? It was so masculine, driven. And when I started thinking about, losing my cycle, my hormones going out of balance, I thought, wow, this was a practice created 5,000 years ago by men for other men. Women were not allowed to practice yoga back then. They were the caretakers. They took care of the family. They cooked. They didn't have the privilege of developing their spiritual practice. It was very much a sexist thing, and it still continues to be in some way. If you look at the people that are sharing religion, spirituality, if you look across all religions, all meditation traditions and practices, they come from a male point of view, and it's centered around male consciousness, which is androcentric. So we have Buddha, we have Patanjali of Yoga Sutras, we have Jesus, Allah, we call God him. It's so much focused around the male energy and the male approach and that mental approach. And I really started to contemplate this and how much I was possibly missing from meditation, because I was always learning it from this particular point of view, from one gender. Where was the feminine voice in meditation and spiritual practice? And what if we brought more feminine energy into our practice? And that's what I discovered when I decided to leave all traditions, all ashrams, all communities, and just learn from nature. And I had always wanted to live in solitude, be in the cottage in the woods on my own, and have that really deep practice. So I provided that space to myself by going to Salt Spring Island, and I found a cottage on a beautiful, still lake in the woods. No internet, no phone, no television, no electric heat. I had to literally carry my water into my house across a horse field because I didn't have a driveway. So it was intense, rustic living. I had to provide my own firewood and heat for my cabin. But it was in that place that I felt that I could really drop in and learn more about meditation and emotional healing, and invite in this feminine energy I was missing, that feeling of being nurtured, that feeling of totally letting go, of falling apart, the learning more about healing and bringing healing in with meditation, learning about channeling and channeling creativity through meditation. All of these softer practices that I really wanted to explore, because what I realized is that I was approaching meditation from such a mental, concentrative point of view. I wasn't embodying fully my practice. It was just, everything was about mental effort and discipline and rigor, and meditating harder and more and longer, and it was just always pushing and pushing, and less about really surrendering and letting go deeply into that space. So that's why I decided to go into solitude, into retreat, and I learned so much from that experience. And from that experience, I came out realizing, we don't have to follow any tradition, Buddhism, yoga. There are amazing practices, incredible, wise texts to study from, but we can still bring in a new, fresh energy into meditation. This was a practice developed 5,000 years ago, but today we live differently. We live a very different lifestyle. We're surrounded by movement, fastness, technology. It's go, go, go. There's a lot of consumption. We have things at our fingertips that we didn't have 5,000 years ago. So how would our practice change? How would new practices begin to emerge? And what we currently share at Suraflow is an energy flow meditation. And it's about meditation as a way of cultivating your energy, your creative life force energy, and how to create, manifest, heal through meditation. That meditation can be anything. It's not just the practice of sitting still 20 minutes every morning. It's how you live your life. It's the energy in which you live your life, the energy of truth, integrity, fairness, transparency, justice. These are the qualities. And once you start really meditating, you start tapping into joy and cheerfulness and creativity. And it's not just a stress reduction technique, it catapults you into a higher level. So when you meditate, you can become receptive to energy and the energy of bliss. You can actually start to feel this energy moving through your body, into your heart, expanding outward into the world. You become resourced in such a different way. It's your happiness isn't determined by what's around you. So today we are seeing an emerging trend in meditation, which means that you don't have to subscribe to a tradition or a religion or anything like that. But if you are following a practice, that meditation can enhance whatever you believe in. So if you pray to God, meditation is a powerful tool for connecting and communicating with the divine. It's a powerful tool for healing mentally, emotionally, physically, energetically. And we can learn how to integrate meditation into our current life. So some people who are mothers, for example, you might not have the luxury of spending the first hour of your day practicing yoga and meditation on your own. You have to adapt the skill of meditation into your life. You are at that spiritual warriorship of being a mother. And so how do you take these skills of meditation into the moment with your children, with your family? And so now we're being made to adapt and evolve meditation for today to include the feminine perspective alongside the masculine approach, which is a more yang approach. So you have that hard, disciplined, austere approach, but I don't think it's anymore today about self-sacrifice and putting yourself last and giving up everything in the world, but actually coming into the world, bringing your practice into everyday life, into the workplace, into your family life, into these places where before it used to be more segregated. It was, go to a mountaintop and, give everything up and live alone in solitude in a cave. So now we're seeing different kind of warriorship, spiritual warriorship in the world. And I think this is a time for people who are meditators, who are healers, to be bringing their fierceness, their practice into the world. And it's not about, hate on hate, but hate being met with compassion, fierce compassion. And when we talk about surrender, it's fierce surrender. It takes courage to surrender. It's not being a doormat. It's not letting anything happen. It's standing for what's right and surrendering to what you know is right and in integrity to bring about a higher outcome. So the meditation we're learning today is meditation that you can practice in stillness with your sitting practice, but also bring into skillful action, meditation in action, and bringing forward this creative feminine energy. So not separating meditation, healing, intuition, prayer. These are all aspects of one skill. So when you learn how to manifest, you learn how to heal, you learn how to meditate, you learn about creativity, you learn about prayer, all these things, shamanism, they're aspects of one skill. And that's what we develop through energy flow meditation practice and your own meditation practice. You realize how fluid, versatile, and incredible this tool of mindfulness is, that you can apply it to anything, that it's probably the most empowering thing you can engage in every day for your health and your well-being.